There are people who walk into a room and without a single word the atmosphere shifts. There is something about them, something deeper than charisma, something stronger than personality. It is peace, wisdom, love, and strength all at once. It is the unmistakable evidence of a life filled with the presence of God. And if you listen closely, if you observe carefully, you will notice the signs. There is something unmistakable about a person whose heart radiates love and compassion. You can sense it in the way they speak, in the way they listen, in the way they carry themselves through the world. It is not a love that seeks recognition, nor a kindness that expects repayment. It is a love that moves freely, unconcerned with applause, unshaken by rejection. It is a heart that beats in harmony with something greater than itself, a heart that understands love is not a transaction, it is a way of being. To love in this way is not to simply feel affection for those who are easy to love. It is not limited to family, close friends, or those who show us kindness in return. No, the love that radiates from a heart truly touched by God is one that reaches beyond convenience. It is a love that embraces the forgotten, forgives the undeserving, and offers grace where the world would demand justice. It is a love that does not hesitate to stoop down and lift up another, even when there is no guarantee of gratitude. This kind of compassion is not weakness, it is strength. It takes strength to respond with kindness when faced with cruelty. It takes strength to choose patience when frustration would be easier. It takes strength to show grace to those who have wounded you. The world often sees love as a feeling, something that comes and goes with circumstances. But true love, the love that radiates from a heart aligned with God, is a decision. It is a commitment to live in such a way that others cannot encounter you without also encountering something divine. A heart filled with love does not wait for the perfect moment to act. It does not calculate whether kindness will be convenient. It moves, it responds, it gives, not because it has to, but because it cannot help but overflow. When love is real, it does not need to be forced. It becomes second nature, as natural as breathing. You see it in the way a person speaks, with gentleness, when harsh words would be justified. You see it in the way they make time for others, even when their schedule is full. You see it in their patience with the difficult, their tenderness with the broken, their humility in moments where pride would be the easier choice. This kind of love is rare, not because it is impossible, but because it requires a heart that has been transformed. It cannot be manufactured through effort alone. It must be cultivated from within. It comes from knowing the depth of the love that has been given to us. A person who radiates love and compassion has first been a recipient of it. They know what it means to be forgiven, to be seen, to be valued, not because they earned it, but because love was freely given to them. And in knowing this, they cannot help but extend it to others. Many people mistake love for mere kindness, for politeness, for a soft and gentle nature. But real love, the kind that changes people, the kind that leaves a lasting impact, is much more than that. It is bold. It is willing to step into the mess of someone else's pain, to carry burdens that are not its own. It is willing to see beyond faults and failures, beyond masks and defenses, and recognize the worth of a soul that others have discarded. This kind of love does not just make the world a better place, it transforms it. There is power in a heart that radiates love and compassion. It can heal wounds that no words could mend. It can soften hearts that have been hardened by disappointment. It can restore hope where only despair once lived. And the beauty of it is that it does not require grand gestures or extraordinary abilities. It is found in the simple, everyday choices: to listen, to forgive, to extend kindness even when it is undeserved. It is in the way we treat the person who cannot repay us, in the patience we offer when no one is watching, in the quiet sacrifices that go unnoticed but never go unseen by God. A heart that radiates love and compassion is not moved by the fleeting approval of the world. It does not love for the sake of recognition. It does not seek to be praised for its goodness. It loves simply because that is its nature, because it has been shaped by something greater, because it understands that love is the only thing that truly endures. Wealth fades, power shifts, achievements are forgotten, but love remains. This is the kind of heart that leaves a mark on the world, not by force, not by dominance, but by the undeniable pull of genuine compassion. It is the kind of heart that does not need to be announced, that does not demand attention, yet somehow, wherever it goes, it changes things. It lifts burdens, brings peace, restores faith. It is the kind of heart that, without even speaking, tells a story of grace, of kindness, of a love that is not of this world, but has been placed within it for a purpose. And the truth is, this kind of heart is not reserved for the rare few. It is not something only the most gifted, the most spiritual, or the most extraordinary people possess. It is available to anyone willing to let go of selfishness, to surrender pride, to allow love to reshape them from the inside out. It is a heart that is available to you, to me, to all who choose to live not for themselves, but for something greater. A heart that does not just receive love, but becomes it. A heart that does not just know compassion, but radiates it. There is a kind of peace that defies logic, a peace that remains when everything around you is falling apart. It is not the peace the world offers, the fragile kind that depends on circumstances, on stability, on everything going according to plan. No, this is a deeper peace, one that is not shaken by hardship or stolen by uncertainty. It is the peace that surpasses all understanding, the peace that cannot be explained yet can be felt, the peace that does not come from the absence of trouble, but from the presence of something greater. This peace does not depend on the condition of your life, but on the condition of your heart. It is the kind of peace that allows a person to smile even when they have every reason to weep. It is the kind that lets someone walk through the fire without fear, not because the fire is not real, not because they do not feel its heat, but because they know it will not consume them. It is the peace that steadies trembling hands, that quiets anxious thoughts, that silences the voice of fear whispering, "What if?" It is not born from denial, from pretending everything is fine when it isn't, but from the unshakable confidence that no matter what happens, they are held by something greater than themselves. The world offers many solutions for peace. It tells you that if you have more money, more success, more security, then you will find peace. It tells you that if you can control everything around you, if you can eliminate uncertainty, if you can ensure that nothing unexpected happens, then you will finally be at rest. But the problem with that kind of peace is that it disappears the moment life becomes unpredictable. The moment the bank account is drained, the job is lost, the relationship crumbles, or the diagnosis comes, that peace vanishes, leaving behind only fear and chaos. But the peace that surpasses understanding is different. It is not built on what you can control. It is built on trust. It is the peace of knowing that even if you lose everything, you are not lost. That even if the storm rages, you will not be overtaken. That even if the worst happens, you are still held, still loved, still secure in something unmovable. This kind of peace is what allows a person to stand firm in the middle of trials, not because they are strong, but because they know where their strength comes from. It is what allows someone to face an uncertain future without fear, to walk into the unknown without trembling, to wake up each day not with dread but with quiet confidence. It is what keeps people from being consumed by anxiety, from being overwhelmed by worry, from being paralyzed by doubt. It does not mean they never struggle, never wrestle with fear, never feel the weight of life pressing in. But it means that even in the struggle, they have an anchor. Even in the darkness, they have a light. Even in the uncertainty, they have a foundation that will not be shaken. The most beautiful thing about this peace is that it is not reserved for a select few. It is not something only the most spiritual, the most faithful, or the most perfect people can have. It is available to anyone willing to release their grip on control, to surrender the need to understand everything, to trust in something greater than themselves. It is found in letting go of the endless striving, the exhausting need to have all the answers, and instead choosing to rest in the truth that they are already held, already provided for, already guided by a hand that will never let them go. Many people spend their whole lives chasing peace, thinking that if they can just fix their circumstances, then they will finally feel at rest. But true peace does not come from everything going right. It comes from knowing that even when things go wrong, you are not alone. It comes from believing that there is a plan, even when you cannot see it, that there is purpose, even in pain, that there is hope, even in the darkest moments. It comes from the quiet assurance that your life is not left to chance, that you are not simply at the mercy of fate, but that every step, every moment, is being guided by something far greater than you can comprehend. This peace is what allows people to love without fear, to give without hesitation, to walk through life with open hands instead of clenched fists. It is what gives them the ability to forgive when they have been wronged, to extend grace when it is undeserved, to release bitterness instead of holding on to it. It frees them from the need to control, from the need to manipulate outcomes, from the need to constantly strive for something more. Because when you carry this peace, you already have everything you need. There is no amount of success that can replace this kind of peace. No relationship, no achievement, no possession can ever provide the security that comes from knowing you are held by something eternal. It is the peace that lets you sleep at night, not because you have no problems, but because you know your problems do not define you. It is the peace that lets you face tomorrow, not because you know what it holds, but because you know who holds it. It is the peace that surpasses all understanding, the peace that cannot be explained but can be experienced, the peace that changes everything. There is a wisdom that goes beyond intellect, beyond experience, beyond the sum of knowledge collected in books and passed down through generations. It is a wisdom that does not merely answer questions, but sees through them. It does not simply provide solutions, but understands the deeper truths hidden beneath the surface of life. This wisdom does not belong to the cleverest, the most educated, or the most accomplished. It is not earned through years of study or gathered through the accumulation of facts. It is a gift, a revelation, a way of seeing that transcends human logic and reaches into the heart of eternity. This wisdom does not operate in the way the world expects. The world often associates wisdom with intelligence, with the ability to outthink others, to strategize, to calculate and maneuver for gain. But the wisdom that surpasses human understanding does not seek its own benefit. It does not manipulate or control. It does not strive for dominance or recognition. Instead, it is marked by humility, by a quiet confidence, by an ability to discern what truly matters amid the noise of life. There is a depth to this wisdom that makes it unshakable. It does not react in haste, does not speak without thought, does not rush to judgment. It sees beyond appearances, beyond temporary circumstances, beyond the fleeting emotions of the moment. It is the wisdom that allows a person to remain calm when others panic, to stand firm when others waver, to extend kindness when others choose resentment. It does not make decisions based on fear, nor does it allow pride to dictate its course. It is rooted in something eternal, something unchanging, something far greater than human perception. This wisdom understands that strength is not found in control, but in surrender. That true leadership is not about power, but about service. That the most valuable things in life cannot be measured by wealth, by status, by the approval of others. It sees through illusions, recognizing that success without purpose is empty, that pleasure without meaning is fleeting, that knowledge without love is nothing more than noise. It understands that the greatest truths are often wrapped in paradox, that to find life one must be willing to lose it, that the greatest victories often come through the deepest struggles, that true fulfillment is not found in taking, but in giving. Many people seek wisdom, but few are willing to embrace what it requires. It is not a path of ease or comfort. It often calls for silence when speaking would be easier, for patience when action feels more satisfying, for trust when certainty is nowhere to be found. It requires a willingness to step back, to listen, to seek understanding before seeking to be understood. It requires the ability to let go of the need to always be right, to acknowledge that human perception is limited, that there are truths beyond what the mind can grasp, mysteries that cannot be solved, but only lived. This wisdom moves differently than the ways of the world. It does not chase after recognition, does not seek to impress, does not need to prove itself. It is secure in what it knows, confident in what it has seen. It does not argue for the sake of argument, does not engage in battles that lead nowhere, does not waste its energy on things that do not matter. Instead, it chooses its words carefully, its battles wisely, its path with intention. It knows that time is precious, that energy should not be squandered on meaningless pursuits, that the greatest impact is often made in the smallest, quietest moments. This wisdom is not loud, it does not demand attention, but those who possess it stand out, not because they seek to, but because there is something undeniable about a person who carries an understanding beyond their years, beyond their experience, beyond what can be taught. They are the ones who bring clarity when confusion reigns, who bring peace when tensions rise, who bring light when others are lost in darkness. They do not pretend to have all the answers, but they know where to find them. They do not claim superiority, but they live with a certainty that draws others to them. They do not force their perspective, but their presence alone shifts the atmosphere, makes people think, makes people wonder, makes people hunger for something more. This wisdom is rare not because it is unattainable, but because it requires surrender. It requires letting go of the need to control, the need to be right, the need to have everything figured out. It requires trust in something greater, a willingness to follow where logic cannot always lead, a readiness to accept that the greatest truths are often the simplest. It is not about knowing more, it is about seeing more clearly, understanding more deeply, living more wisely. The world is filled with knowledge, but knowledge alone does not satisfy. It can inform, but not transform. It can illuminate, but not fulfill. It can give answers, but not meaning. But wisdom, the wisdom that surpasses human understanding, changes everything. It shifts perspectives, alters destinies, redefines success. It is not about accumulating facts, but about aligning with truth. It does not fade with time, does not become obsolete with new discoveries, does not waver in the face of shifting opinions. It is constant, steady, timeless. And those who seek it, those who embrace it, those who choose to walk in it, will never be the same. They will not be swayed by the winds of circumstance. They will not be shaken by the uncertainties of life. They will stand firm when others fall, see clearly when others are blinded by distraction, move with purpose when others wander aimlessly. They will know what truly matters, and because of that, they will live in a way that makes a difference, not just for themselves, but for everyone they encounter. There is a kind of faith that is easily shaken, the kind that stands strong when life is easy, but crumbles when storms arise. It is the faith that relies on comfort, on things going according to plan, on prayers being answered in the expected way. But then, there is another kind of faith, one that does not waver in the face of hardship, one that remains unshaken even when everything else is falling apart. This is the faith that carries a person through the darkest nights, the faith that does not demand understanding, but chooses to trust anyway. It is a faith that does not crumble under pressure, but grows stronger because of it. This kind of faith is not born in the absence of trials, but in the midst of them. It is not built on the foundation of an easy life, but on the lessons learned in the fire of adversity. It is the faith that remains standing when logic says it should fall, the faith that still believes when hope seems foolish, the faith that clings to something greater when everything else has been stripped away. It is the faith that whispers, "Even now, I will trust," when everything inside is screaming for answers. Many people think faith means never feeling fear, never experiencing doubt, never struggling with uncertainty. But true faith is not the absence of these things. It is the decision to keep believing despite them. It is the willingness to move forward when every voice in the mind says to turn back. It is the courage to hold on when it would be easier to let go. It is the kind of faith that does not depend on circumstances, that does not require immediate relief, that does not need everything to make sense in order to keep going. An unshakable faith does not pretend trials do not exist. It does not deny pain, does not ignore suffering, does not dismiss the reality of hardship, but it looks beyond them. It sees something greater at work, something deeper beneath the surface, something unseen yet more real than the circumstances pressing in. It understands that trials are not the end of the story, that pain is not the final chapter, that hardship is not a sign of abandonment, but an opportunity for transformation. There are moments in life when everything we rely on is stripped away, when the security we once had is shattered, when the plans we made fall apart, when the dreams we cherished seem out of reach. It is in these moments that faith is tested, not in the days of abundance, but in the seasons of drought. And in these moments, one choice makes all the difference. Some allow their trials to break them, to make them bitter, to convince them that hope is a foolish thing. But others choose to stand firm, to trust even when trust seems unreasonable, to believe that there is a purpose even when it cannot be seen. These are the ones whose faith does not just survive trials, but is strengthened by them. An unshakable faith is not afraid of the unknown. It does not demand all the answers before taking a step forward. It does not need a guarantee before choosing to believe. It walks forward in trust, knowing that even when the way is unclear, even when the road is difficult, even when the outcome is uncertain, there is still a reason to keep going. It understands that faith is not about controlling the future, but about trusting the one who holds it. It is the quiet confidence that no matter what comes, no matter how fierce the storm, no matter how deep the valley, there is a hand that will never let go, a presence that will never leave, a purpose that will not be undone. Many people want faith without hardship, strength without struggle, wisdom without the lessons that pain teaches. But the deepest faith is forged in the fire. It is in the waiting, in the enduring, in the pressing forward when every part of the soul is weary that faith is refined. It is in the moments of desperation when everything else has been stripped away that a person discovers what they truly believe. And those who come through these moments with their faith intact are never the same. They are not shaken by the small things. They are not easily discouraged. They do not live in fear of what tomorrow may bring, because they know, deep in their soul, beyond any doubt, that they are held, that they are not alone, that they are stronger than they ever imagined. This kind of faith is what carries a person when they have no strength left to carry themselves. It is what allows them to look at a mountain and say, "I will move forward anyway." It is what keeps them standing when the winds howl, when the waves crash, when the night seems endless. It is the unexplainable peace in the midst of chaos, the quiet resolve in the face of uncertainty, the unwavering trust when everything seems to be falling apart. The hope. It does not mean life will be without hardship, without loss, without tears, but it means that even in those moments there is still hope, still purpose, still a future beyond what can be seen. And when a person has this faith, they become unshakable. They do not live at the mercy of their circumstances. They do not allow the trials of life to define them. They do not let fear dictate their choices. They walk forward in confidence, not because they know what lies ahead, but because they know they do not walk alone. They have faced the fire and emerged stronger. They have weathered the storm and learned that they cannot be uprooted. They have stood in the darkest moments and found that the light still shines. An unshakable faith is not built in a single moment, not acquired in an instant, not something that comes easily. It is forged over time, through trials, through perseverance, through the choice again and again, to trust when trusting is hard. It is not a faith that depends on everything going right. It is a faith that stands firm even when everything goes wrong. And in the end, it is this faith that makes all the difference. There is something remarkable about a life that does not merely exist but inspires, a life that does not just move through time but transforms those it touches. It is not the loudest life, not always the one that seeks attention, not necessarily the one that accomplishes the most in the eyes of the world. Rather, it is the life that carries a quiet strength, a steadfast love, an undeniable presence that leaves people better than they were before. A life that inspires is not one lived for self-glory, for the pursuit of personal gain, for the accumulation of wealth or recognition. It is not about being admired, about standing above others, about proving something to the world. Instead, it is about giving, about lifting, about shining a light that helps others find their way. It is a life that is marked by generosity, by kindness, by the willingness to walk alongside those who are struggling, by the determination to bring hope where hope is needed most. Such a life is not shaped by ease or comfort. It is often carved out of hardship, refined in difficulty, deepened by seasons of loss and struggle. Those who inspire the most are not those who have never faced adversity, but those who have faced it and refused to be consumed by it. They are the ones who have walked through fire and emerged not bitter but compassionate, not hardened but wise, not defeated but determined to help others rise as well. They know what it means to struggle, and because of that, they have the strength to uplift others. Transformation does not come through words alone. It is not in grand speeches or eloquent philosophies, not in elaborate gestures or temporary displays of goodness. A life that transforms others is one lived in truth, in consistency, in integrity. It is the person who does what is right, even when no one is watching, who holds to their values when compromise would be easier, who chooses patience over frustration, love over resentment, faith over fear. These choices, repeated daily, shape a character that cannot help but impact those around it. People are not changed by perfection. They are changed by authenticity. They are not drawn to those who never fail, never struggle, never fall short. They are drawn to those who keep going despite their failures, who learn from their struggles, who rise even when they fall. A life that inspires is one that does not pretend to be without flaws, but instead embraces growth, embraces humility, embraces the journey of becoming. It is a life that acknowledges its weaknesses but does not allow them to define it. It is a life that turns every setback into an opportunity to grow, every failure into a lesson, every hardship into a stepping stone towards something greater. To inspire is not to impose, not to force change upon others, not to demand that they see the world in the same way. It is simply to live in such a way that others begin to believe in what is possible. It is to embody the strength that someone else needs to see, to carry the hope that someone else is searching for, to offer the kindness that someone else has longed for but never received. It is to be the kind of person who, by simply being who they are, encourages others to become the best version of themselves. A life that transforms others does not have to be extraordinary in the way the world defines greatness. It does not require fame, fortune, or influence. It does not require a stage, a platform, a position of power. The most powerful transformations often happen in the smallest moments, in the quiet conversations, in the unseen acts of kindness, in the simple choices to love, to forgive, to be present. A teacher who believes in a struggling student, a friend who refuses to give up on someone who has lost their way, a parent who leads with love and patience, a stranger whose kindness reminds another that they are not alone. These are the lives that change the world, not in grand, sweeping gestures, but in the countless, unseen ways that ripple outward, touching hearts and shaping futures. There is no blueprint for a life that inspires. There is no single path, no one way to make a difference. But there is a common thread that runs through all such lives, a deep, unshakable commitment to something greater than themselves. Whether it is faith, love, purpose, or the desire to leave the world a little better than they found it, they understand that their time, their talents, their presence is not just for their own benefit, but for the good of those around them. And though the impact of such a life may not always be seen immediately, though the results may not always be visible, though the full extent of its influence may never be known in this lifetime, a life lived in service, in truth, in love, will never be wasted. Every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, every moment spent lifting others up leaves a mark, plants a seed, creates a ripple that extends far beyond what can be measured. In the end, the greatest legacy is not found in possessions, not in titles, not in the recognition of the world, It is found in the lives that have been touched, in the hearts that have been encouraged, in the people who have been changed simply because someone chose to live with purpose, with integrity, with love. A life that inspires and transforms is a life well lived, not for self, not for fleeting success, but for something eternal, something that will continue to shape the world long after that life has ended.